Okay. So you might want to stand by for about 3 minutes. She'll start to get right to you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, so just for clarity, how do you pronounce your first name? Make sure you get it right on the air.
Sure, it's Zan for Alexander.
All right, cool. All right, is it short for Alexander?
It is short for Alexander. You're right. It's just the middle syllable. Instead of going by Alex, I go by Zan.
All right, that's pretty cool. All right, I'll let them know that you go say Zan on the air.
Okay, bye.
All right. 15 more games. I just want to get another win. Just kidding, kind of. Cruz is the first player ever to win SEC Player of the Year in back-to-back seasons. You can hear first pitch between LSU and Arkansas at 4:30 on the Bet 92.9 FM, 1350 AM, and the Odyssey app. Just search the Bet New Orleans. Steve Geller, WWL Sports. Today on Sports Talk with Bobby Hebert, Mike Detillier, and Steve Geller, we'll bring you live updates of LSU baseball in the SEC tournament. Plus, looking at the best available free agents who could help the Saints. And basketball analyst Jimmy Patos breaks down the NBA playoffs. Huddle up with Bobby, Mike, and Steve, 4 to 8 p.m. on WWL, AMFM.com, and the Odyssey app. The local weather expert forecast is next. WWL News Time, 12:06.
Out of new enrollment. Monique Daycare is crawling with new arrivals. Each week, she needs more early childhood educator. Did your socks slip off again? And a nap. There they are, little guy, all big. Whoa! Indeed can help her hire great people fast. I need Indeed. Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Raymond Johnson here for eBay Motors. So you ordered a new air filter for your car. You try to install it, but it doesn't fit. So you take a little bit off the side. Well, you could try to sit on it. Or get it right the first time with eBay Guaranteed Fit. When you see the check, you know that part's going to fit. Air filters, brakes, headlights, over 122 million parts. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors, let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Now, your Garcia Roofing forecast on WWL.
Getting ready for your long weekend here. The weather looking great. We'll be in the mid-80s through here from today all the way through at least Memorial Day on Monday. The humidity is not going to be too bad, so that's what's making it feel so nice out there. While it'll be warm, it shouldn't feel too hot. Rain chance is 20% today, 20% Saturday. Other than that, looking dry through the holiday. From the local weather expert forecast center, I'm WWL TV meteorologist Pete Malone.
Mostly sunny and windy, 80 degrees south of the lake, 81 degrees, and partly sunny skies on the North Shore. I'm Tom Perumian, WWL First News.
From WWL, the News Talk Sports Powerhouse, it's the Joel Norman Show. Let's change the conversation in New Orleans and the Gulf South. Join us on the Oakland Heart Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870, or always live on the free Odyssey app. Now, live to our Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union studios. Speaking truth to power. New Orleans.
You've heard me say that it's incredibly important to vote. It's never more important than in this election when we elect the next governor of the state of Louisiana. We said that we would get as many of the candidates who have announced that they're running on air so that you can assess each and every one of them for yourself. Today, we're joined by Republican Zan John running for governor. Zan, welcome to the show.
Sheriff, thank you so much for your service and honored to be on your show.
Thank you, sir. I've not interviewed you before, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, sir. So I have an 11-year career in oil and gas production here in the state of Louisiana. I stood up in 2020 against the whole COVID hoax lockdowns. I was trying to let everyone know when I ran for Senate against Deep State Bill Cassidy, who voted to impeach Trump, that this was all pre-planned with Event 201. I'm a patriot, native Louisianian, and I'm not going to stop fighting for the truth.
So, Then I'm sure you've been out on the campaign trail. What are you hearing from the constituents of the state of Louisiana as to what their priorities are?
They're fed up. Censorship and things like that have no place in Louisiana, all this wokeism. But what the most difficult thing to relay to everyone, because there's so much artificial feedback, is letting people know that these are supranational groups and top-down movements. No one's asking for all this Bud Light and Target wokeism. That's all brought around by these big NGOs that set out a social credit score for businesses, if you will, an ESG score. And so people have to understand, and it's sad because it's not taught in school, or if you did teach it, you probably get shut down. But all these problems we're facing, no one's asking for, one, and two, it's going to take everyone getting together and acknowledging what the real problem is to actually combat it. So I'm dealing with lots of frustrated people because we could have a renaissance if we wanted. If it was just easier to drill and produce carbon, open up that Keystone pipeline, no reason for it to be shut. We could have a much simpler life, and we are on the verge of that. And this is literally I put it in the dichotomy of, this is a fight of right versus wrong, not right versus left.
Wait, so let's go to a couple of key issues I've asked I've asked all of the candidates that we've had on thus far about where they stand.
Sure.
Obviously, let's talk about abortion. Where do you stand on that?
It's not healthcare, I can tell you that much. In this country, aborts babies for convenience. With the exception of extreme medical anomalies and incest, rape, things like that, there should be no need to do that. I mean, that's hard. I mean, when you don't value human life, what do you value? And there's been an ongoing concerted effort by the mainstream media to make it fashionable, and it's not.
So you would be in favor of exception. That has been voted down thus far in the legislature.
Only an extreme exception, but I'm totally fine with being completely anti-abortion.
Tell me what you define as extreme exception.
I just went over those, sir. So incest, rape, or some sort of extreme medical anomaly.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would have no problem with this state being completely anti-abortion.
What else are you hearing from folks as you make your way around the state?
Well, we all know that if this Sean Wilson guy wins, it'd be a third term of John Bell. It'd just be a microcosm of what's happening with Obama and puppet Biden. A lot of people are worried about all of the farmland that Bill Gates is snatching up, that's 70,000 plus acres. And, all he wants to do is give us GMO food and sewage water. So also, too, people are worried about crime. I hear a lot about that. And we have this social decay that is brought upon us by these leftist law schools. You can't get in if you're conservative. Look into that, people who don't believe me. And also, too, you got these George and Alexander Soros DAs that'll just, let repeat offenders out. So
what would you do if you were elected governor to combat them?
I'd immediately get rid of all the George Soros funding. We'd have to immediately expel all these people that do not let this balance of checks and balances work.
How do you get rid of George Soros funding?
No, well, you call it out. You are uncensored and not banned whenever you let people know what's really going on. If people could understand how this nation is, and subsequently this state is being undermined, they would know how to constructively unscramble this egg, if you will. So with this nuance coming about in 2020 of censorship banning, shadow banning, it's harder and harder to get the right message out, or just an unfiltered message out. And it's such a shame. So us people on the right, or just like I say, us rational people, we have to do more for less. And the more involvement, the more eyes on it, the harder it's going to be for these Democrats and NGOs and billionaires to sabotage our natural balance of rational politics.
There's a couple of bills making their way through the state legislature right now on transparency relative to juvenile records? Where do you stand?
Transparency on juvenile records. I haven't given that any thought. I do know, not to deflect, but there's a concealed carry bill. What is it, 131 or 177? I have it somewhere that's being proposed again. I'm worried that John Bell is going to kill it. But the youth transparency thing, sir, I don't want to talk about something I haven't researched. So forgive me for not being prepared for that question.
Not a problem. I was going through some of your what you call where you your sheet that where you stand on issues. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally fine.
I know one of the other bills that was just recently voted down in Health and Welfare Committee on the Senate side was relative to gender affirming care. Your thoughts?
Oh, that's the inmates running the asylum. To even dignify those people, I mean, that is, and I know I always go off on a jag about these things, but that is deep-rooted Tavistock agenda. If people just simply look up the Tavistock Institute, understand what their agenda is, this is part of the sterility movement. If the Democrats and this deep state can't get you in the womb, they want you sterilized. And so this gender affirming, that means going along with someone's mental illness. There are men and women, there are only XX and XY chromosomes. That cannot be denied, but you're supposed to look past that in the name of political correctness, which I'm completely against. I mean, it's just a complete erosion of rationale, and we can't let that happen. So of course, I'm completely against it. And I won't even dignify people with that mind virus, that social decay. I mean, it's just, you'll get nowhere. It's a bridge to nowhere.
So if you were asked today what you thought was the most pressing issue in Louisiana, what would you say it is?
It's multifaceted, but I think right now it's our economy. We could be self-sufficient and not have to worry about others, and so many good things would stem from having a strong, healthy economy. So lowered taxes, enabling us to harvest our natural resources, oil and gas. We're combating, Louisiana, which is so oil rich, we're combating this misnomer that carbon is a pollutant, and it's not. Man is a carbon-based being. And so if we could do what's called secondary and also tertiary recovery in these zones, we would have a lot more oil. So there's just so much untapped potential, literally, beneath our feet. And that would help with the economy. And because of leftists and woke ideology, that's become more expensive and harder to do. So I think the biggest thing facing us is our economy, because once we fix that, so many things would be easier to tackle after that. And the state of Louisiana would have the money it needs to do constructive activities, like vamping up our infrastructure and such.
A number of other candidates highlight education as part of their platform. Where does that fall for you on your platform?
That's extremely important. Definitely top 5. There is an ongoing effort to screw up the minds of the youth, and we see that with all these hip advertising and colors and flags. And there's a reason why Hitler wanted the youth so bad, is because you control the youth, you'll control the future. And our youth is being purposely sabotaged, I feel, and people aren't, or students and youngsters aren't able to learn what is going to be actually productive and conducive to a good, productive society later on in life. So education needs to be, I feel, completely overhauled as far as what is taught, and the institutions that are funding these schools, or private schools, public schools, or however they get their money, it's always with strings attached. Like, you need this money to do this. Well, you got to teach this curriculum. And that's one of the ways we can stop this vicious cycle. These schools need money and they need upgrades, but it's corruption in exchange for convenience.
So when you look at the public education system in the state of Louisiana, as governor, you have a lot of influence in the course that will take. What would you tell your constituents?
I tell my constituents that Schools need to have a more practical application as far as what they're teaching. We need to teach gun safety. We need to teach about how to manage businesses. We need, like I said, again, I know this is a broad statement, but we need a complete overhaul of what's being taught. Of course, reading, writing, math, these basic things, but also kids don't need to go to school and learn what gender they need to choose and all this stuff. And it even goes into our public universities, like LSU and all these other schools that are becoming extremely woke. And I mean, you can't walk around the university with a Trump hat on without being heckled, because the leftists they're an overrepresented group, and that's a shame. It needs to change, and more people need to stand up and call it out for what it is.
But fundamentally, I mean, that can't be the only issue with education.
It's
DEI, CRT, whatever. I mean, this is not a monolithic challenge, where it's one issue in higher ed or in K through 12.
You're right. If you want to refine the scope a little bit, maybe I can comment further.
Yeah, I mean, I just was curious. I mean, you've gone to that a couple of times, and I'm just curious. It can't be only that issue. There has to be.
No, you're right. I don't have all the answers. Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Relative to funding, we have a decreased number of enrollment in schools. How are we going to manage that? Governance. We have multiple systems in higher ed within the state of Louisiana. Does that make sense? Do we have too many 4-year colleges? Not enough. Too few 2-year? Not enough.
All that stuff I'm not well versed on. I haven't given it as much thought, obviously, as you have. I finished my education, and so while I do know it's a pressing issue, to go further into these issues, sir, I don't want to talk to something I don't know.
Zen, when you say you finished your education, I'm not sure I understand what that means.
Oh, I'm so sorry. As in, I graduated college. I'm not actively.
Mine has never ended.
Oh, okay. No, now I'm picking up what you're laying down from an academic. No, we will always be learning, and it's best to have an open mind. Look, I don't know it all, and I'm not trying to act like I know it all, but I know I'm not going to be another guy that sat back on the sidelines and just fussed about politics. That's why I'm getting involved, and I always want to push the envelope for truth, because it seems so few people will want to, because of this whole counter movement and censorship.
If you had to pick one thing that you would change in Louisiana tomorrow, what would it be?
It would definitely be making it easier to drill and get all of these hydrocarbons that are underneath our feet. I'd make it easier to harvest our natural resources while being responsible. But there's a war out, like I said, against carbon, and it's a complete joke. And this country, this nation, this state could be completely self-sufficient, arguably, and we have all the resources to do such. We are just limited by laws and things like that.
Right. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I want people to ask yourself, is your candidate pro-government or pro-freedom? So Demand Zan John, Louisiana first. And I sincerely appreciate your time, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, sir. You too.
Be visiting again, I'm sure. All right.
All right.
Zan?